4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Eskin, and on behalf of Eskin Fundraising Training, it is our pleasure to welcome you to number 64 in the Nonprofit Empowerment Webinar Series. There's an old saying that even a broken clock is right twice a day, but nobody is perfect all the time, except for my two guests that I'll introduce in a few minutes, Carolyn Young and Jasmine Deet. The rest of us humans make mistakes. And today we are going to spotlight what I call the biggest blunders you should not commit. And I'd like to take a second and ask our producer, Michael Largent, how people can either type something in the chat space or come on camera.
All right, so if you have any questions while you're listening, you basically have a couple options. The first one is you can go in the chat space and type them out, and then I'll read them a little bit later. Or what we really prefer is that you turn on your camera and turn on your mic and then just ask the questions that way. So those are your two options.
Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of learning priorities. I'm a frustrated football coach, so I put them on a chalkboard. Number one, we're going to show a lot of data and context before we get to the 10 blunders. The money is out there, okay? The money is out there. Now, also, there are a heck of a lot of nonprofits out there. There is something right now, 1.5 million nonprofits. And you need to define what makes your good cause different from all those other good causes. Point number 3, I was watching a bad movie on TV late at night, but it had this line is, what is a relationship? A relationship is something you have until something better comes along. Something we call friendships are enduring, and that's what we really want to build with our donors and prospects. Friendships that survive a yes, a no, and a maybe. We're going to talk some about the principles and strategies and best practices that guides us. And then we're going to get to the meat and potato. We're going to talk about 10 very specific blunders and how you can avoid them. And then we're going to celebrate victories. We like to call ourselves a learning community in which we have CEOs, executive directors, board members, volunteers, and they all have something to contribute, and we value everybody. So at this moment, can we ask you all to type in your name? We're going to simplify this. Type in your name, your nonprofit, and your location, like your city. And Michael, let's take a look at these. I wonder what our long distance buddy is for this show. We see any cities?
We've got a couple San Antonio so far. Oh, we've got Virginia Beach.
Hey,
from,
who's
from
that?
Keith Stava.
Hey, who in Virginia Beach? Let's bring Keith on camera.
First right.
Hey Keith, what's the weather like there?
Off and on rain. Typical summer in Virginia.
Wow.
Hot, humid.
Well, thanks for joining us. We'd like to give you and everybody else, we developed a mantra and we call it Nonprofit Strong. So will everyone type in the words Nonprofit Strong? I see right away. Keith, what are we?
Nonprofit Strong.
Nonprofit Strong.
Right. Jasmine, what are we?
Nonprofit Strong.
Okay, and we have two special guests. Let me see. Jasmine Dean and Carolyn Young. Let me see. Okay, Michael, It seems like you can see a lot of people on camera, so that's what we want, right?
Yes.
Is there
Looks
an
good on my
easy way to make it just me, Jasmine, and Carolyn, or is that complicated?
We
Maybe.
can. I'll change it. I'll change it to. If you set it to speaker mode, then it'll just show whoever's talking as the big picture, and then
Okay,
everyone else will be small.
okay, where is speaker mode?
Should be in the top right where you see view.
Okay, okay, so click on speaker.
Yeah, click on speaker, and then it should work.
Okay. Well, listen, welcome. At this point, I want to bring up our two special guests, Carolyn Young and Jasmine Dean. How do we make them bigger? They got big egos. They want to be big on the camera.
Oh, no.
Well, once they start talking, they'll appear larger. Yeah.
Okay, let's start picking when Carolyn Young is a professional fundraiser that achieved the credentials of certified fundraising executive. There's just not that many of them, and she may be a little mad that I wasn't one of them. But we worked together for 10 years, and I can't tell you what a valuable partner she was in just making sense of things that do make sense, but more important, making sense of things that don't make sense at all. So Carolyn, I thought the best way that the audience get introduced to you is I ask you two, I think, little revealing questions, okay? The first question, you've had great variety in your career. You've raised money for education. You've raised money for museums. You raise money for humane societies. Can you take a moment to compare and contrast the fundraising in those different sectors?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me on, Jim, and you know, your leadership. It was great working with you and at Our Lady of the Lake and at San Antonio College's foundation. I enjoyed it a lot. You know, the similarities of working in these three different areas that you mentioned, there have been some others, but it's really the same of uniting your donors with the cause and identifying the passion within each donor and what it is that really drives them toward that organization. So not everybody is going to support every organization. The money is out there. You're exactly right. So it's just identifying the passion within the individual and what drives them toward that organization. If it's scholarships or if it's things around campus, if it's a certain type of academic program, you know, that goes into education. At a museum, is it a particular exhibit? Is it something about the kids? It was a children's museum that I was with. So,
you know, Carolyn, you know, once in a while, I ask a deep question. So here you go. If you could travel back in time, what advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
To get into fundraising now. I love it. I do. And I truly wish I had done it earlier in my career. And I wish I had sat for my CFRE immediately at the time that I was able to sit for my CFRE.
Okay. Hi, Marv. Okay, let's bring Jasmine Dean on. Jasmine Dean is the founding executive director of Celebrate Dyslexia. I think it's now about 3 years ago, we blindly met at a Starbucks that was kind of hidden away. And I liked her from the word hello. She was introduced by a mutual friend and said she wanted to begin a nonprofit. I think I gave her 100 reasons why it wouldn't work. She gave me a reason that it would work. Welcome, Jasmine. And congratulations on what you've achieved with Celebrate Dyslexia. It's just mind blowing.
Thank you. It's
And so
definitely
if
been a
someone,
team approach.
Yeah, as someone who wasn't afraid of the word no, what advice would you have for anybody listening out there on starting a new nonprofit? You know, it's like a puzzle with 1,000 pieces. Where do you
Mhm.
start?
I think you start with a mission. You have to be able to scream that mission from the rooftops of
Yeah.
any building that you climb. You have to believe it to your core. You have to be ready to prepare it for succession and understand that you don't own that mission, that you are serving your community through that mission.
You're a wise lady. Let's keep you around. Okay, and that's perfect. Let me see, Michael. Let's see if I can share screen quick enough. And yes. Does anybody know
Hmm.
about this photo? I see Marv, Leroy, Jasmine. Anybody have a raise a hand if somebody can identify this photo? Jasmine, do you want to take 2 cents?
I believe though that is a picture of the lines of the San Antonio Food Bank.
That's exactly right. You get another favorite Starbucks libation next time we get together. This was taken on April 9th, 2020 by a San Antonio Express News photographer named William Luther. And what he did, he got a drone to elevate his camera and got this shot at one of the food bank projects that day that was serving 10,000 cars and 50,000 people. That's who they fed that day. And this went viral. This was all over the world. And I think we can be proud. We had Eric Cooper on just 2 weeks ago talking about that effort, that the way the San Antonio community stepped up to help those in need. Marv or Roy, guess what $1 million a minute is? Hey, Marv? Well, million, let's forget, Marv, you missed your chance. When we were talking, the money is out there. That's what American philanthropy translate. If you got enough batteries in your calculator, $1 million a minute is being given away. And we like to say, we're looking forward to have Laura Fredericks be our guest on September 8th to kick off the new year. She's probably, with the loss of Jerry Panis, the most visible fundraising consultant on the planet. She gets on CNN and things like that. And she's been a wonderful teacher and mentor, and she's going to join us on September 8th. She makes a big thing. Never think of philanthropy as zero-sum game, that Jasmine's got to give up a pint of blood for Carolyn to get a pint of blood. You will never win with that type of vision, that with those of us like Marv or Roy and Carolyn have been around long enough to know that donors actually get, if much, the same, if not more, out of the philanthropy as the beneficiary. We were talking about how many nonprofits are in the US, 1.5 million. And guess what? They will all say they're good causes. We like to say that fundraising is both art and science. And so there are 4 distinct phases, you know, discovery of who you're going to ask for money, cultivation, how you build a personal and emotional friendship, solicitation, how you set the stage for the asking, and finally stewardship, how you recognize and thank, because the next year you're going to come back to Jasmine and you're going to ask her to give again and to consider an even larger gift. It's been actually a great year for philanthropy. We hit 471 billion. And by the way, we're going to come back to this in our blunders. This is where the money comes from. If you take individuals and then you take bequests, those are individuals who passed on to higher places. and you combine about half of family foundations, this number is 88% is really individually driven money. I know I love money from corporations and foundations, but the money in action is from individuals. And we want to say we have a deal anytime they want to break in. By the way, Michael, we'll give them meeting access. Mackenzie Scott, Dan Jewett, over the last year are giving away $9 billion unrestricted, over 100 million here in San Antonio. And we featured 6 of the recipients. Let's go through some of the blunders, okay? And I'm probably going to start with Carolyn, and then I'll move down to Jasmine. Number one, when you, and this now, and I'm going to take a second, it changed dramatically in 18 months, but the common denominator for asking a major gift, and organizations will define major gifts in different ways. It might be a $10,000 gift. It might be a $100,000 or $1 million gift. But that has, you can set it up over the phone, but that has to be a face-to-face meeting. We've actually learned, you know, Carolyn and I would go to conferences. In some cases, we would teach them, you got to ask eyeball to eyeball, face to face. But we couldn't over the last year. In many ways, Zoom was effective because, again, it could be eyeball to eyeball. But let me ask, I'll tell you pre-COVID what drove me crazy. Carolyn, when I be talking to a board meeting and we'll be talking about prospect Z, and they'll say, well, they'll bump into them at the chamber banquet, you know, one of 900 intimate people. Why do you think a professional, why do you think people avoid the face-to-face ask?
Well, I think they're afraid of being told no.
And how can we overcome that?
Just show your passion. Just know what it is that you're presenting to the person, an opportunity to really make an impact in their community, a direct impact in their community. And if you have that passion, it's going to come through and it's going to make a difference.
Jasmine, from the volunteer side of the woods, why do people seem to resist, like root canal, you know, asking face to face or screen to screen?
Honestly, I don't think people practice it often enough. And I think it's just really getting used to communicating with other people and feeling comfortable listening to what they're saying, not kind of getting it out there and getting ready for your next comment, but really having an organic conversation with someone to see, is this person even interested in this cause, or do they know of someone else? Can they be a lead to someone else that might be?
Okay, let's keep on Jasmine, okay? I like to pick on you. This one kills me, and I just ran into it 2 weeks ago with a client, and I couldn't believe not asking for a specific amount. I'll tell you, in this case, they were getting ready to solicit the board, and they would just walk in. Joel's, what do you think you can do? Or Jasmine, what do you think you're going to do? You know, we live in a price tag oriented world, and everything from a roll of toilet paper to a Maserati has a price tag on it. It was just unfortunate that a year ago that the toilet paper was getting close to the price of the Maserati there during the shortage. But why do you think, from the volunteer side of the house, that so many people don't want to ask for a specific amount?
Because they don't know what the budget is, and they don't really know what's needed.
Okay.
That's my or they're not giving themselves, so they don't know. Like if I was giving to an organization, I would know how much at least I was giving, so I could ask for that amount.
Yeah.
But I think that's when people don't have a specific budget or specific project that they're asking for, and they don't know how much they really need to be getting. That's a huge barrier to asking for a certain amount.
Yeah. Carolyn?
Jim.
What? Okay, Joe, come on in. Why don't people,
Jim,
what do you think?
Jim, there's a risk involved.
What's
If
the
you-
risk?
The risk is if you ask for too much
Yeah.
or too little, there's a risk involved. If you ask for too much, you turn them off. If
Yeah.
you ask for too little, you turn them off. You have to know the donor. Where is the donor feel comfortable giving? And that changes from donor to donor.
And
It's-
that isn't, but let me, can I take him on? He's my buddy. Joe, by the way, he was in San Antonio, but Love moved him to Dallas Fort Worth. Why? But again, why wouldn't you suggest an amount? Joe?
Because if you, if you say, we're looking for $10,000 for this cause, this may say, hey, I don't have the money, I don't have 10,000. But if you say, I'm looking for 1,000, they say, yeah, we could give you 1,000.
Well, that's the whole point. I gotta say, you have to say a specific amount. Let's move up to Carolyn for a moment.
Yeah, you do. You have to say a specific amount. And if it's too high, then you say, well, if this is, if they really indicate that it's too high, then you visit with them and say, well, if that's too high, then what are you comfortable with?
And by the way,
you have a conversation with
And then
them.
I want to take on, say you under ask, say I go ask Joel Batelski $25,000 for scholarships. He goes into his desk and he writes out a check and says, here you go. I know I under asked, okay?
Yeah, you're
And that
leaving money
is-
on the table.
But no, as I get older and grayer, I say you just steward that person like they gave $500,000, which is what they really could afford. And you take that 25,000 and you steward them and you show them what the money is achieving, and maybe even less than a year, 6 to 8 months, you could ask for $500,000. I'm not, as I get older, I'm not that much injured by under asking, because I think you always can go back as long as the person's under, I don't know, 85 or something, but I'm not going to get in trouble with people above 85. But I'm not so worried about under asking as I get, because I think basically their gift becomes great cultivation.
You shouldn't worry about either one. If you've done your homework, if they've been
Yeah.
a donor and you've really developed a relationship with them and you've done your homework, you have an idea of what their capacity is. Even if you can find research and you know what they've given to other organizations, and that just prepares you. I think a lot of people go into it without being prepared. Maybe they haven't worked with the professionals in the organization. So,
Okay, so here's a Jim Eskinism. I say that everything that is important to us in life, that can be business, that can be personal, that can be community, you're going to run out of time. I just got to tell you, whatever, if it's a meeting, a project, or this, or that, an assignment, you're going to run out of time. And so that paranoia has been part of me a long time, but it was never so sensitive. It's like in a donor solicitation. I was afraid. You never know, that something's going to happen. You could run out of time. I always felt too that people went in kind of nervous on both sides of the table. And bottom line, the ask should be made in about 10 minutes, in the first 10 minutes, because what you want to do is allow adequate time to respond to concerns and questions. I got my 2 cents in. Let me move down to Joel Batelski. What do you think about asking very early in the meeting?
I like it personally because
I'm not going to ask you, where you got your corned beef sandwich. I'm going to go right to business.
I like when you and I like the fact that even you let the donor know why you're even coming there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Carolyn?
mean, it's more than a social call or
Yeah.
how are you, drink a cup of coffee. I
Right.
have a
It's
purpose to come here.
Carolyn, what you're thinking about the timing of the ask?
Oh, absolutely. It has to be early on. Yes, you want to be able to answer questions. And, during that conversation, you can be showing your passion and you can, really pull them in through your excitement and your passion about the organization.
Jasmine, what's your volunteer experience of asking early in a meeting for the money?
I don't know I'm the right person to ask this question to, honestly, Jim, because I feel like the personal connections and the guidance in the community are also very valuable, especially for a nonprofit, not necessarily just the check.
And also, by the way, I didn't have any context. We were saying, assuming, and of course you make the first three letters of yourself by using assuming, but this was after proper cultivation.
Okay, after proper cultivation,
yes.
Yeah. I think it's really important if you're ready for the ask and you know exactly how much you need and you're ready to talk about the project. No one wants to waste their time. They want to know, and if they're ready to give, they want to hear what you have to say and want to know how they can support and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This one almost has brought me to tears. I got to tell you, we've all, been in this career 30 to 40 years, but typically you make an ask. You go to Carolyn Young. Carolyn, we've appreciated your support in the past. We have some new challenges. Will you give to a gift of $50,000 to establish the Carolyn Young Endowed Scholarship? And then you zip it. Why do you think, as a professional, it might seem like, what's it called, an eternal silence, but you zip it? Why do you think people unzip it?
Just because they're so nervous, they feel they haven't made the case that they wanted to make. They haven't expressed what it was that they wanted to express. I mean, maybe the person, the donor is sitting there with some kind of a look on their face, and you're reading the situation the way you want to read it. It's just nerves. It's just nerves.
How about Jasmine, from a volunteer? Have you sat through an ask, and I will tell you until I'm blue in the face, remain silent? Why do people not remain silent?
I would completely agree. It's the nerves.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe they should have like a shot of whiskey or something before they go in. Okay, another thing. You're going to happen, when you do this long enough. Carol and I like to think we've endured about every possible mistake in the world. Okay, that was part of learning and just being employed. Let me tell you, I've spent probably half my life on the development of printed and written and material. Okay. And a lot of time, and I work for institutions preparing a document that's what I couldn't let out of my hands. The words were so precious, and it had images and photos and so perfect. But we like to say, when you go in with Sir Richard Branson, or you go in with Jeff Bezos, or I don't know who's going into space next week, you don't give that collateral material, no matter how overwhelmingly well it's done, until the meeting's over. Why do you see that broken, Carolyn?
Again, I think it's nerves. I think people aren't comfortable being in a situation where they're asking for money. I hear too many people, oh, I don't want to ask for money. And I think people just are are not comfortable with it. I mean, and even those of us in fundraising in different situations, we just get nervous and we rely on things to hand out, you know. Maybe we don't feel we've made a good case for support. Well, here, look at what our programs are. Or here, look at that. It just gives something else to talk about. And again, I think it's just nerves.
Okay, Jasmine, for a volunteer leader, why do you think that people overemphasize whatever their marketing material is, as opposed to an eyeball to eyeball conversation?
I think, again, it's lack of practice having conversations with people, but also maybe it's a little bit of insecurity of being prepared. And so if they have it written down to give to somebody, then they feel that that's what they can focus on in the conversation. But as we know, it's all about relationships and cultivating those relationships. And you don't do that when you're staring at a piece of paper. So,
and I'm going to come back. Ultimate, you said it's your passion, your personality is going to sell them. Think of it this way, that beautiful marketing piece or collateral material, that speaks for you when you're gone. That's the way I like to say it. You know, when you're there and you can speak for yourself, or I got Jasmine and Carolyn there and I'll let them speak for themselves. I don't care how overwhelmingly impressive that 75 pages of paper is. You all speak, and then you got to leave at some point, and that paperwork will be given to a committee or to a lawyer or an accountant to study. It speaks for you when you're gone. It doesn't speak for you when you're there. Oh, enough on that. Okay, let's move forward. Individuals. I know that we showed the demographics that really it's close to 87% of Americans' $471 billion of philanthropy came from either a live individual, an individual who passed on, or an individual who runs a family foundation. That's 87%. I got to tell you, when I was working with boards, I'm asking who can identify some prospects. You heard corporation, corporation, foundation, foundation, foundation. I don't know. Carolyn, I'll start with you.
You know, I really don't know why people think about that. And I mean, this is kind of hard for me in a way. I think our fundraising professionals understand that. I think where you get a lot of that is in board meeting discussions with putting together some prospective donor lists. So I think it's more the volunteers that look at that. And they just don't understand. And again, maybe, I mean, it's a false perception for them to see that. But like Jasmine has said, they might feel better talking. Maybe it's business leader to business leader. They feel more comfortable in that kind of a situation. And maybe because they do their presentations about their own product, and that has prepared them in some way to do that kind of thing. And so maybe they're just not comfortable meeting individually to individually on that kind of.
Jasmine, I want you to close out this section if I get that. That's okay.
You know, Jim, I feel like this is the new challenge for newer nonprofits, that we have to tap into a younger generation and not necessarily expect the larger gifts right away.
Yeah.
Really just have smaller asks so that everyone feels like they can be a part of it. And then as careers mature and that kind of thing, hopefully those gifts will turn larger. But I think there's a huge emphasis right now on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really
Which is good.
Making sure that your donor base reflects that as well, that you really are serving the entire community, and that it is relevant to the whole population that you're serving.
Right. Okay, let's go. This is another one that's broken my heart. Going on a solicitation call is a board member or a volunteer who has not made a significant gift for themselves. And let me define significant for Carolyn, for Jasmine, for me, and for Jeff Bezos has many different definitions, but you know what I mean. Why do you think sometimes, Carolyn, that happens, that somebody who hasn't made a significant themselves calls on me?
You know, it does. It happens all the time. I've seen it in almost every organization in which I've worked. And put your money where your mouth is. You know, you talk about the organization and how much you care about it and everything. But you know, that passion that you talk about when you go in to make an ask, it really does make a difference when you have made your own significant gift, because you feel you really know the investment that needs to be made in it.
Jasmine, what's your thoughts where people who haven't committed are asking for money?
I don't know that it's going to be super successful because I think people are intuitive and they know. But in this day and age, even if someone doesn't, the significant gift can also be time, or it can be a connection, or it can be, you know, another translation of a gift. And so in a way, maybe that opportunity will also be a way to win over that board member when they are in that meeting and they hear the ask, they see what's going on. It's an opportunity to get both for the price of one.
Go ahead, Joel.
When you are setting up a board or looking for a board member,
yes,
is there an expectation?
All the time.
All right.
Is there an
expectation?
Yes. Yes, there is an expectation
On
that they give and get. G&G, give and get.
You think my expectation, or what I think people say, okay, you're asking me, a board member, so you're asking for my time. But I don't know about my money. I mean, you're asking me to volunteer to be on this board to help you out, but are you also asking for my money?
And let me say too, in fundraisings like baseball, we track every damn statistic, and there's such an overwhelmingly powerful connection between volunteering. Those who give their money, give their money. Those who give their time, give their money. Money follows time every time.
Would you say that to, you're out there trying to get volunteers to help you?
Yeah.
Would you bring this issue up to them when you're talking to them about volunteering to be a member of your board?
Yes, I think one of the things we have to do is make very clear expectations of what's it, wisdom, wealth, and wisdom, wealth, and wealth.
So I'm
okay,
I'm
but you
not
give
only
them
looking
that
for your time, but I'm looking for your money.
Time, talent, and treasure.
Thank you, Carolyn. Time, talent, treasure. And by the way, but Joel, there is so much data that say if someone's going to give their time, and as you get older, you know what you realize? You got more money than time. When you're 40 years old, you don't think about that. But as you get older and hopefully commensurately wiser, that, you know, you can replace money, you can never replace time. They'll go hand in hand.
Now, Joel, you can't, when you have somebody coming in as a board member and you're talking to them about that, all you have to talk about is making a significant gift. You can't talk to them about what that amount should be. That you need to leave that up to them, at least to start with.
I wouldn't say the word significant gift, but my feeling is that there's this expectations beside that there is an expectation that you should give some money. Now, how much money? It's up to you. I mean.
Wait,
how you feel.
another cliche we use a lot is a stretch but realistic amount.
Mhm.
Stretch might mean if you can pay it off without leaving that night, I don't call that stretch. Stretch is maybe you pay it off in some payments or there's some element of giving. I want to move on to the mechanics. I had a dean at the business school at UTSA who is such a classic. He would run his meetings. He'd say, this is what we're going to talk about. He talked about it and he just verbally recapped everything before everyone left. And I always loved that format. Did I always carry out? No. Did I always want to? Yes. And I want that for your fundraisers, that you should not leave the meeting until you have closed. What are the next steps? The next steps might be that Jasmine's going to visit the site. The next visit might be that Jasmine said she has to visit with her accountant. But you're very precise, and then you set a date. Well, Jasmine, how long do you need to meet with your accountant? She gets, I think, about 10 days. But you recap this. This is me. I think that before you leave the meeting and before you talk about small talk about last night's football game or this restaurant, recap the meeting. Jasmine, what's your thoughts?
I think that's great. I think you tell them what you have to say, you tell them again, and then you remind them one more time.
Particularly responsibilities and timelines.
Mhm.
Carolyn, what have you discovered works and what doesn't work?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just the 3 steps that Jasmine just laid out. You have to make it clear for them, and you just go over it so everybody understands where things are. I ran into a problem with that at one of my organizations. That didn't get done, and it wasn't the best result.
Yeah, happens a lot. The truth is, we're not going to get usually the yes or no right out of the gate, particularly for a larger gift. In this case, I'm going to say less than 25,000. Okay, so I got to tell you, I ring a bell when I get 10,000, but let's call this 25,000. Jasmine said she might need to discuss it with her Aunt Hilda, who actually is going to fund the money or something, or discuss it with her an accountant. Those accountants get in the way, Jasmine. I always say you set a specific, before you leave that place, Jasmine, it's okay. We're going to meet back here on the 13th of November. No, actually, we're going to say on a real date. Okay. And don't leave that meeting until you set when you're getting back together. Jasmine, why do you think people miss doing that?
Well, I think it's nerves again. You get excited. You just can't close the deal.
Yeah.
Those are just a couple of things that are.
And typically, by the way, the larger the amount, the longer it takes to close the deal.
Mhm.
Carolyn, how about you? What do you see? Sometimes people just don't bring proper closure to meetings. What explains that?
Yeah, I agree with Jasmine that it's nerves. I think they don't want to come across as being pushy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, how do you set the amount for which you're going to ask? You don't want to be pushy, and so to press somebody, you don't know what their thought process time would be. So
let me tell you, I want to stand up for all the pushy people in the world. They're out there and they're pushing, and that makes a difference. There are a lot of pushy people.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
To some extent, you just do. You need to set it, and that's all.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's getting comfortable. It's being prepared. It's what, practicing and doing it. I've been doing this for 30 years, so I'm probably coming across as something else, but you just do it. You just learn to do it.
And here's something else. This was my favorite practice, again, because it's not just, it's the professional thing to do. but you want to point next steps and outcomes in a certain direction, particularly if the donor didn't say yes or no. So I like to give a email summary. That way I'm controlling those words, okay? And also by his response of saying yes or no or nothing, he's kind of affirming your understanding. So I like to send an email summary that just clarifies we're talking about a gift of $100,000. You're giving 1 week to meet with financial advisors, and we're getting back together for something. And then also something I am freakish about, and I'd like to have Jasmine and Carolyn comment. I just love handwritten notes because, again, I don't know how many you get.
Oh, I totally agree. A handwritten note makes a ton of a great impact. I was going to say a ton of difference, but I think it just makes a great impact to send a handwritten note. Yeah.
Yeah, Jasmine, to your perspective.
I agree. There's just that additional thank you. I think I knew someone who once said that I think you have to thank someone 10 times, right? For a gift.
Right. I know. I use 7. I don't know. That's
Or
how
7
I go.
times?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
very important ways that
Yeah.
you can thank a donor for a gift.
But I just, again, the handwritten note, I investigate in personalized cards and envelopes, and then there's the stamps that go up. But I put it this way, I maybe sent and received, I don't know how many 100,000s of email. I haven't saved one. People can save handwritten notes. That's how it's different than any other communication.
Okay, so can I say something here, Jim?
Yes, let's go ahead.
Okay, so the principle is the same regardless of the amount of money. So if you're asking for 25,000 or 50,000, or you're asking for $50,
Yeah.
you're saying the principles are the same.
Yeah, I'm
Now,
not
you
saying
said
just the
that
principle.
a guy gives you $25, you want to send him a handwritten note versus a guy gave you 25,000.
Well, Joe, here,
You know,
I like to think fundraisers are social entrepreneurs. Obviously the guy who gave you 25,000 is your new best friend. But sometimes the guy who gave you $25, you kind of, he's making a first time gift to your organization. And maybe there's a sense that you really can nurture excitement about the mission. And I wouldn't discuss, I was kind of paranoid. I just like to either one way or another, I wanted to get a handwritten note out every day, and thank God I didn't have any old girlfriends or anything, but I got, I think there's just no substitute for that, which is absolutely crazy because this whole world is digital.
Right. I mean,
I want to turn. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you is important.
Oh,
Whether it's
man.
a handwritten note or an email or some
hug,
other message.
an elbow rub or a hug, or you're right. Is there anyone in the learning audience too? We have a little time here for questions. Anybody like to ask for questions before we wrap up? Anybody out there? You can either type them in or better yet, come on screening. I'm going to pick, is Diana Hoyt still with us?
Yes, I am.
Come on, camera. Diana, by the way, she's one of my mentors. She's been a guest and has been in this professional lot. Let me pick on you for one question. If I say it until it's blue, you asked for a specific amount. Why do you think so many nonprofit leaders don't do that?
Well, I think it was Carolyn who answered that by saying they weren't prepared. Anybody who has worked with a campaign, with major gifts, or any other type of fundraising, if you didn't do a rating in advance, and most people hate that word rating. What do you mean you rated me? Well, you know, if you want to do the best possible job of raising money, you have to have some idea of what you're going to ask for. And I don't like ranges. So, I mean, I've been
Yeah.
listening to all the answers, and I mean, I really agree that you need to ask an individual for an amount. You owe them that.
I agree. Just like when we get a new car, I don't expect the salesman to say it's going to cost you between 41 and 49,000. You know, he's going to show me a printout how it got to whatever, 49,000 probably. But it's here are some of the golden nuggets. We're saying eyeball to eyeball. Thanks to the last year, I think in some instances it can be done via video technology. I know everyone calls the Z word, but there are other platforms. And however, I'll say this, and Carolyn and Jasmine, you come in, I think making a Zoom solicitation would work with people who have real history with your organization, and you can get away communicating that informally. I don't know if it's a first-time donor that can be asked to come in, let's just say at 50,000. I don't know.
I wouldn't be comfortable doing a Zoom ask as with a brand new donor. No.
Yeah, yeah. Jasmine?
I would agree.
And I would say this, if a donor wanted to meet with me, I mean, Carolyn and Jasmine knows, if there was a donor, you know, if they wanted to meet us at midnight, you know, down somewhere on Broadway, we would do it fine. You know, you always ask the donor when, where, you know, and I think now that's even important. You know, they can pick what they want. To me, outdoors, that would be easy. Do they want me to show proof of vaccination? I'm fine with that. Okay, that's me and my nonprofit. You know, but I would let them dictate it. Do they want to? Probably a rich, smart person would ask you to their house and you go out to their deck or sometime. You know, this probably has a great awning and everything. But from then on, I'm going to ask them to consider a specific gift of $1 million to start the Jasmine Dean Endowed Fund. Okay.
Yeah.
We were talking about, you know, baseball is like fundraising. We have statistics for everything. Now, this was before COVID, but you see the success rate is just several times greater than when you ask face to face. That's eyeball to eyeball, or I'll give you eyeball to eyeball over a screen. And nothing comes close to getting that type of results. But you get down to it, folks. You know, I've been in this biz, you know, with Carol, and we won't say how long. The ask, you know, I'm saying you get some context of how the organization's doing. You get to about the 10-minute mark, and you're going to say, Jasmine, we need your help. Would you consider a gift of $2 million to establish an endowed chair in Penguins? And then you remain silent. That basically, if you're doing that, you're making a solicitation. And they talk about, I can't believe you can do it. That's what I can do. I mean, it's really, I don't know, it's about 30 seconds if you drag it out. And then you remain silent. Carolyn, it's broken my heart when I've been with I hate to say a boss, a president, a dean, a foundation chair, and they hear the silence. You know, we asked for 25,000 and they go, oh, we asked for too much. How about 10? Oh, you saw the guy, the biggest smile on the donor and everything, you know, we did our homework, you know, he throws 25,000 around like, you know, popcorn. But I mean, you really get down to the accordance. If you can say these parts and remain silent, folks, you are a fundraiser. I want to give you some something reassuring. I've done research. I do research on things like this. The first organized fundraising appeal in this space was something that Harvard conducted. Guess what? An annual appeal in 1643. Harvard had an annual appeal. Now, you've been doing it for that long. That's how you have an endowment of $40 billion. But guess what? Ever since Harvard asked for money the first time in 1643 to 1 minute ago, there is no recorded fatality or casualty. When you ask no, guess what happens? I mean, when you hear no, what happens?
Nothing.
Jasmine, what happens?
Nothing happens.
To me, the world moves on. And I got to tell you, in this business, if you're unwilling to get no, you're not going to get yes. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. But, you know, I always like to say, kids, man, they have no, Jasmine, do your kids have any problem asking for money?
Honestly, they are very wise in how they ask. They know, they have learned their audience, and they know when the appropriate time is.
Okay, Callan, as your grandchildren, did they have any reluctance in asking?
Not at all. Granny, take me shopping. It's back to school time, you know. But hearing a no just gives you another opportunity to learn a little bit more about your donor. You know, is it not the right time? So if not now, when? If not this program, you know, what is your passion? If not this amount, then what are you comfortable with, you know, or how else would you like to help? It just gives you another opportunity to extend your conversation and learn more about your donor.
And I say, Carol, if you stick with that person after they say no or not at the level, that is where you're proving friendship and not relationship.
Sure.
So, by the way, we got a few minutes left. Anybody else for a last question or comment?
Jim?
Yeah, who says?
I'd really like to thank Carolyn and Jasmine.
Okay.
Nothing against some of your other presenters, but this was one of the best programs I've seen you do.
Well, you know, my mother caught me very young. You know, the key to success was surrounding yourself with the right women and ladies. So, you know,
That's right.
if you can do that right, you know, then you can stumble to success. But I want to thank Carolyn Young. She was crazy enough to work with me, 2 different institutions. Sounds like we were in prison together for a total of 10 years. And then Jasmine Dean is someone who I talk about learning community. You have been you have embraced. You're like a sponge in learning. And then you put it all to application to work, and you're a success story. That's how you're coming to here, as a success story. So I want to say we have next week, we're going to do a program on podcasts. Okay. I'm real excited about. And then I have Laura Fredericks, who's probably the best known fundraising expert in the world. She's going to be my August 8th guest. And something that's fascinated me for a long time is to compare what is similar and what is different about raising money for charitable and political causes. And so I have 2 former members of the US Congress, different parties. And then I have 2 other people who've been very involved in raising. And I've been fascinated. You know, I think it's one of these things, a very broad topic. So I hope you'll join us for that. And I'm going to skip here. Any suggestions for topics? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Any, Joel? Yeah, Joel.
I would just like to end that success is largely a matter of holding on after others have let go.
Persistence, baby. It's all in the persistence, you know? And I wanted to leave everybody with a money back guarantee. The more you ask, the more you get. That's my money back guarantee. The more you ask, the more you get. I want to thank my, the nice thing too, when you work with people in the nonprofit sector, it becomes more than a business association. And these are two women, one I've had the sight of knowing longer, but both I just value you as friends and individuals and the role models you are. So thank you. Jim Eskin says, Carolyn Young and Jasmine Dean, thank you for being part of my life and journey.
A pleasure.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
It's been fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Who else?
Great.
Who else is out there? Diana? Thank you. I'm going to have to recruit you again. You're such a perfect note. Michael, I thought you did very well. We went in and out very well. So we'll have a recording, hopefully.